Thick smoke continues to rise from the streets as protest voices echo across dozens of provinces and hundreds of cities. Reports suggest that more than 500 demonstrations have already taken place, making this one of the largest waves of unrest the country has seen in recent history. Some unconfirmed claims even suggest that a senior leader's private residence was attacked during the chaos. Many observers believe this situation is no longer just public frustration. Analysts now describe it as a structured movement that goes far beyond simple street protests. Demonstrators are no longer only gathering in public squares. Instead, they appear to be operating with planning, coordination, and strategic intent. According to several independent sources, protesters have developed an underground information network that tracks key individuals linked to state authority. This system reportedly allows them to collect intelligence and expose sensitive locations connected to high-ranking officials. If true, this represents a major shift in dynamics, as methods once used by authorities may now be turning back against them. The streets are no longer just loud, they are organized. As tensions intensify, the emotional atmosphere on the streets appears to be changing rapidly. What initially began as collective anger now seems to be transforming into something deeper and more personal. Observers suggest that fear, which once dominated ordinary citizens, is gradually shifting toward those in positions of power. Several unverified reports claim that individuals associated with harsh crackdowns are now feeling exposed. Social media discussions indicate that some protesters are attempting to identify those they believe responsible for past actions. While many of these claims remain impossible to confirm, the psychological impact is already clear. Uncertainty itself has become a powerful force. Experts believe this growing pressure is affecting decision-making within leadership circles. When authority begins to feel unstable, even rumors can influence behavior. History has shown that regimes often weaken not only because of physical resistance, but because of internal doubt and loss of confidence. What we are witnessing may not just be protests, but a slow breakdown of trust, control, and certainty within the system itself. A video circulating widely on social media has added a new layer of uncertainty to the situation. In the footage, a man wearing a military uniform claims to be an army officer announcing his separation from the current leadership and expressing support for the people. While the authenticity of the video cannot be independently verified, its psychological impact has been significant. Such content spreads quickly, especially during periods of unrest, and can influence public perception even if questions remain about its origin. Analysts suggest that videos like this are powerful not because of whether they are real or false, but because they plant doubt inside institutions that rely heavily on unity and discipline. If even a small portion of the security forces begins to question leadership, the entire structure can feel unstable. Trust is the foundation of any organized force, and once that trust begins to weaken, confidence across the system can decline rapidly. Regardless of the truth behind the footage, the message it carries has already intensified uncertainty and amplified tension across both the public and official spheres. As uncertainty grows within official institutions, the atmosphere on the streets continues to change as well. Reports from multiple cities suggest that public behavior is no longer limited to spontaneous protests. Instead, people appear more organized, more coordinated, and more determined than before. This shift indicates that the movement may be evolving from emotional reaction into structured resistance. Observers note that when large groups begin sharing information quickly and working together toward common goals, the balance of control can quietly shift. Even without formal leadership, decentralized coordination can become powerful. History shows that movements built on shared frustration often grow stronger when authorities underestimate them. Another significant development is the changing role of local security forces. In several locations, officers have reportedly chosen not to escalate confrontations. While motivations remain unclear, analysts believe this behavior reflects internal confusion and hesitation rather than strategic planning. When enforcement becomes inconsistent, uncertainty spreads across every level of governance. And in such environments, uncertainty itself becomes one of the strongest forces shaping what happens next. While events unfold on the streets, another silent battle appears to be happening behind closed doors. Power struggles inside political leadership often remain invisible at first, but small signals can reveal deep fractures. Recent statements from senior officials show a noticeable change in language. Instead of outright condemnation of protests, Some are now acknowledging public frustration and speaking about the right to be heard. To analysts, this shift in tone is not accidental. It often suggests that leaders are trying to reposition themselves for what may come next. When authority begins preparing for survival rather than control, it reflects uncertainty at the top. Political figures may attempt to present themselves as reformers, even if they previously supported the system they now quietly distance themselves from. Such moments are critical in history. They mark the point where loyalty becomes conditional, alliances begin to weaken, and strategic silence becomes more powerful than loud speeches. When internal confidence erodes, even strong structures can begin to weaken from within, slowly at first, then all at once. At the same time, cracks are becoming visible within the security structure itself. History shows that when institutions begin to hesitate, regimes lose their strongest shield. Reports and video evidence circulating online suggest that in several cities, enforcement forces are no longer acting with full unity. In certain locations, officers have been seen stepping back rather than advancing. Some units appear slow to respond, others avoid confrontation altogether. This behavior may look minor on the surface, but strategically it is extremely significant. A system built on fear only survives when those enforcing that fear remain fully committed. The moment hesitation enters the ranks, control begins to weaken. Analysts believe this may not be open rebellion but rather something more subtle and dangerous for leadership: silent disobedience. When orders are delayed, when loyalty becomes selective, and when individuals begin thinking for themselves instead of following commands blindly, the foundation of authority begins to shift. Empires rarely collapse from one dramatic moment. More often, they unravel through quiet refusals that slowly multiply until power no longer holds its grip. As internal fractures deepen, another powerful shift is taking place beyond the streets, inside the economic backbone of the country. Protests are no longer limited to chants and gatherings. They are now quietly disrupting the systems that keep the state functioning. Reports emerging from industrial regions suggest that essential sectors have begun slowing down operations. Energy facilities, transport hubs, and critical supply routes are experiencing unusual disruptions. These are not random incidents. They reflect deliberate pressure points being targeted by those who understand how power truly works. When fuel distribution weakens, when logistics chains break, when communication networks face interruptions, the strength of any government begins to erode rapidly. A modern state depends not only on weapons but on infrastructure. And when that infrastructure becomes unstable, authority loses its grip. What we are witnessing is not chaos without direction. It appears to be strategic resistance. Rather than direct confrontation, the system itself is being strained from within. This form of pressure is far more dangerous than protests in the streets because it attacks the regime's ability to function at its core. Alongside these internal disruptions, another silent shift is unfolding within the security structure itself. Trust, once the foundation of control, appears to be weakening. In several areas, reports suggest that enforcement units are showing hesitation instead of authority. This hesitation is not accidental, it reflects uncertainty within the ranks. When officers begin questioning orders, when commanders delay decisions, when coordination breaks down, the entire structure becomes vulnerable. A system built on obedience cannot survive long when loyalty begins to fade. Even small acts of hesitation can create large gaps in control. Observers note that this kind of internal doubt often appears before major political transitions. It does not require open rebellion. It begins quietly with delayed responses, reduced presence, and silent resistance. Over time, these patterns reshape the balance of power. History shows that when confidence disappears inside institutions, external pressure becomes secondary. The real collapse begins within. And once that internal foundation weakens, restoring authority becomes nearly impossible. Another powerful pressure point is emerging away from the streets, inside the economic and energy systems that keep the state functioning. When protests grow, governments usually focus on controlling crowds. But history shows that real power shifts when workers, technicians, and operators quietly stop the system from within. Recent reports suggest that key sectors like fuel distribution, power management, and industrial operations are experiencing unexplained slowdowns. These are not loud strikes announced on television. They are subtle disruptions, delayed procedures, reduced output, missing coordination, but their impact is massive. A government can silence slogans, but it cannot easily replace skilled professionals overnight. When experienced workers step back, entire systems begin to stall. Vehicles lack fuel, communication weakens, logistics suffer, authority remains on paper, but functionality starts collapsing in practice. This kind of breakdown does not look dramatic at first, but over time it drains the strength of the entire structure, not through confrontation but through exhaustion. Beyond the internal cracks and system failures, an even larger shift is becoming visible on the regional level. Alliances that once appeared solid now look uncertain. Support that was once loud has become quiet, and silence in geopolitics often speaks louder than statements. When power weakens at the center, those who once depended on that power begin recalculating their future. Loyalty becomes conditional. Cooperation becomes selective. Survival becomes the priority. This transformation does not happen because of ideology, it happens because influence can no longer be guaranteed. History repeatedly shows this pattern. When a central authority loses momentum, its outer network begins to dissolve. Partners hesitate, support slows, commitments fade, not because of betrayal but because instability is contagious. No one wants to tie their future to a collapsing structure. This is how influence disappears, not through dramatic announcements but through quiet distance. All these developments lead to one unavoidable reality. Systems do not collapse only because of pressure from outside, they fall when belief inside them disappears. When citizens lose trust, when institutions lose direction, when authority loses confidence, the structure may still exist physically, but its foundation is already gone. Power survives on legitimacy. Without it, commands become suggestions, orders become ignored, fear loses effectiveness. History is full of examples where governments did not fall because of invasion, but because they could no longer convince their own people or their own institutions to continue believing in them. The situation we are witnessing is not just about protests, politics, or unrest. It is about a larger transformation, the moment when a society begins questioning narratives it once accepted without hesitation. That moment is always dangerous for those in power, because once the mind shifts, control can never fully return. The real question now is not what will happen next. The real question is how long the existing structure can survive under this weight of doubt. Subscribe WarLogicX for more deep analysis and real-world documentary storytelling.